Hey, this is Golden Buddha, back with some more RPG stories for your listening entertainment. Today I have a story about fear, a story about loss, a story about danger. Today I'm going to tell you all about our first ascent into the necropolis that is the well. So my friend Tom, he told me we were kind of talking about horror games, how we wanted to run more of them. And he started telling me about this one that was very, very interesting. And I was just like, well, what is it? He was just like, oh, it's the well. It's amazing. It's about you live in the city known as Bastion, and it's so far underground, and it's buried by layers of other cities before it filled with all kinds of monstrosities and horrors. There are players known as gravediggers, and they have to go and explore the necropolises above the city of Bastion. So I was like, wait, you're dungeon diving above? And he was like, yes, there's 12 levels of different cities. And I was like, that sounds different. I think I want to give it a go. And so Tom, he puts together some people, he gets together some players. I'm in that group, obviously. We end up playing, and we start off in this tavern towards the gate of Bastion, the gate going out, up the well. And I guess now would be a good time to introduce the characters. Here we had Carl, the sickly doctor trying to find a cure for his wife's illness. And he spoke in this raspy voice. He was a good guy. Then we had Helga von Duskbreaker, this noble woman with this massive great sword, plate armor, and a helmet. Oh, also she was a part of the Painters Guild, which is essentially like the mages of this world. They write runes onto objects, and it can imbue those objects with different properties. So say, for example, if a painter writes the light rune on a rock, the rock starts glowing. Makes sense. But they do have limited paint. That's the issue. Then we have Mames, this axe-wielding, sarcastic, tough guy. Then we have Dreyfus. He's a long-bearded ex-miner with glasses, and he's also a rookie gravedigger. Then we have Algernon, black-haired with an axe. That's about all I got out of. Oh, and he had a jacket. That's about all I got out of his character, honestly, because the player didn't do a good job of describing him. Tom asked him. He was like, "Hey, describe your character," and he just pretty much listed what his character had. It's just like, okay, your character has chain on him. That's nice. Last but not least, had me playing Ellis the Cutter, and he's this dark-haired, with this shaggy dark hair that kind of gets in his eyes sometimes, and he has sunken gray eyes, and he wears this blackened plate armor and has a massive great sword on his back as well. We start getting to know each other over a cup of fungus beer, because there's no trees in this world. Bastion is a city that's been underground for centuries. This whole civilization of humanity living in this underground city, they've been there for a long time. They don't know what's on the surface. They don't know what the sun is. They don't know what the stars are. They say sky. What's a sky? Is that some kind of drink? So all they know is that there's cities above them, and all they know is that the well leads up to those cities. And they do have a little bit of history about these 12 different layers. Not a whole lot, but enough so that they kind of have a rough rundown of what you can run into on those layers. Ellis, he gets up from his seat and he's just like, well, that's enough dallying. Let's get ready to go on this delve. Carl, he follows suit, then Helga, then Mames, and everybody gets up. Dreyfus, he downs his cup real quick, and we all get up and head towards the gate of Bastion. Now the gate is made of these massive iron rods, kind of welded together by magic, I think, and they pretty much block the way into the well, and they also prevent monstrosities from just coming in and just killing everybody. 100 meters tall and just pretty cool. And so we get to the gate, and we see the gatekeeper, Melvik, this bald old man. Yeah, he's just an old guy. He watches the gate. And the thing is, if you want to go in and out of the gate, you have to have coin. So we had to pay him 10 silver each to allow passage to go into the well. And so he asks us a little bit about us. He's like, oh, you guys are going back into the well. And we're just like, well, yeah, we're going back into the well. We're grave diggers. That's what we do. So Ellis and Carl kind of asked him, like, hey, have you seen anybody come in with any good loot? And he's just like, well, I don't think that'd be fair to them. And I don't think you'd like it if I told other people if you came in with loot. And we just kind of look at each other and we're just like, yeah, that's fair. That's entirely fair. Because this is a kind of world where, like, gravediggers are necessary, but, like, it's not a luxurious profession. Everything you do here is pretty bad. Like, there's nobles, of course, and there's people who live better in this world. But for the most part, if you're just a normal guy, you don't even get security. There's no retiring. You just work until you die. So gravediggers, they do get some things from the upper levels that can't be manufactured, or that can't be, or that would just be nice to get back. Like, oh, it's just like, oh, this guy wants, some heirloom, and you have to go up there to this level and dig through a whole city to find it. Or something like, oh, like I found this exquisite painting, or that was still intact. Or we found a weapon that hasn't been manufactured in thousands of years, and we'd like to bring that back down so somebody can do something with that. Also, we'd like to get paid, because the better stuff you bring down, the more you get paid, and hopefully you'll be able to retire. Melvick, he takes our money, he opens the gate, and we ascend up the stairs. Before we ascend, we actually let me backtrack a bit. Before we ascend, our group kind of just started talking amongst each other and just kind of getting prepared for the journey, because you only get so much stuff to start off with. Ellis kind of asks, he's like, hey, who has paper and ink? There's silence. Helga pipes up and she says, well, I have a spell book, a rune book. And then Ellis asks again, he's like, does anyone have any actual ink and paper? And everyone just kind of shrugs. And then out of character, I say, what? Nobody got ink and paper? And then everyone's just like, well, what do you want? Like, we're going on a dungeon delve. Like, what, you think we're gonna bring ink and paper? We're gonna be doing a lot of writing. And I'm just like, well, we might be mapping stuff. And then Helga's player is just like, well, why didn't you get the ink and paper? And I'm just like, well, I didn't have a good answer. I had no excuse. I should have been the one to get the ink and paper. And I begged Tom for a second. I was just like, Tom, please, can I trade out my dice for a piece of paper and some ink? And he was just like, it's gonna be a no for me, dog. And I'm just like, all right, damn. So we head up there. We have plenty of torches and plenty of food, plenty of water. So we start heading up, and we establish a marching order as well. Ellis and Helga, they're in the front with their swords. Then we have Carl protecting Dreyfus, who's carrying the lantern. Carl had a spear and shield. We had Mames, Algernon taking up the rear, just to make sure nobody ambushes us. And so we make our way up. We bypass the first level, and then we go up to the second level, because we're just like, first level has probably been picked clean for the most part. And so we go up to the second level, and we're just like, okay, we don't want to delve too far because we have some newbies in our group, but at the same time, we do want to get paid because we need to have money to come back on an expedition. So also, before we leave properly, the party kind of starts like talking about how the nobles just want to dig down and don't really want to like explore anything above. They kind of just want to leave people up here. Because Helga's a noble, everyone starts giving her the side eye. And Ellis kind of steps up and says, hey, I don't care about all these politics. All I need to know is, Helga, can you swing that sword? She says, yeah, I can swing it well. All right, that's all we need to know. Let's go. And so we head off towards Oil Blood. Now, the thing about floor 2, level 2, it has a lot of curvy architecture. That's the main thing about it. So they try to do like curvy walkways and try to be a little fancy with it. Make our way up there slowly, through the darkness with just the lantern lighting our way. And we open the doors and we start taking these winding passageways that go around these caverns that just lead into nothingness. we make our way to this kind of open room. And here's where we kind of start talking, debating what we'll do. It's like, okay, And also, I just kind of out of character, I say, hey, Tom, how does combat work? Because I just wanted to know, because I was like, we're here. We're probably going to get into combat pretty soon. And so he explains how the game works. This would be a good idea to explain how the game works to you all. Essentially, the well uses D6, right? Anytime you want to do something, you need to roll a D6, and you're trying to get over 5, generally. 1s are an automatic failure, and 6s are a success, which means they explode as well. So if you roll a 6, you roll another 6, and so on and so forth. Now, the thing about this game that makes it awesome and just so much fun to play is the gambits. Now, you can wager items or just bad things like complications. You can wager those against the DM. So let's say, for example, I wanted to get an extra dice to my roll. Let's say I was trying to climb a ledge and I really needed to climb this ledge. So the DM's like, okay, make an athletics roll. And I'm like, well, if I don't successfully climb this ledge, or if I roll a 1 and fail this ledge climb, or not fail this ledge climb, but if I roll a 1, I lose all of my food. Like, I lose my supply of food. He could give me an extra die for that. So instead of rolling 1d6, as you normally would, you'd roll 2d6, which makes it easier for you to hit that target number of 5 to 10, and also increases your chances of rolling a 1. So it's a huge risk reward thing, and oh my lord, it's so much fun. Like, I can't even, Anyways, Tom explains that to us, and we're just like, okay. We start exploring into this big room, should I say, more like a lobby. Dreyfus, he's shining the light. Mames and Algernon, they check to see like if there's anything following us. They don't see any enemies. Ellis opens the door, and so we open one of the doors and go in. There's nothing in there but tombs, just bodies piled up, just dead bodies and just rotting corpses. So we pilfer a few of the corpses while Ellis is just like kind of looking out, and we don't really find anything of interest. So Ellis is like, well, we have to go further down. We're not going to find anything in front of the front door. We have to go further in. So we start checking more of the rooms, and we start going through the curved walkways. Eventually, we come across a dead body. In this room with the dead body are 4 total points of egress. The door we came in, then there's one ahead of us, one on to the right, and one to the left. And the room is filled with these stone tables and stone chairs just covered in hundreds of years of dust. Algernon, he says, hey, can I go search it? And we're just kind of like, And Tom's like, yes, you may search it. As he pilfers the dead man's pockets, he finds a knife and a flint and steel. And as he looks closer at him, he sees that his face is filled with tiny little holes. In fact, his body's dotted with holes. The leather that this man was wearing has been ripped apart, and this body is fresh. It's only been here a few days. Mames looks at it and he says, that is not good. Algernon starts to get worried, and he's just like, okay guys, I'm getting back with the group. And then the body jolts. Ellis screams, Helga, cut it down now. And then Helga just, I got it, grabs it, chops its head off. As the blade connects with the neck and severs the head, we all turn around and we hear the fluttering of wings, and we see on the wall teeth with wings, like literal teeth with wings, massing in this massive swarm, ready to just fly down on us. And at that point, all hell breaks loose. We're just like, what the hell is this? Like flying teeth? Like teeth, actual teeth with wings. Like, what does that even mean? I guess some necromancer was just like, oh yeah, man, flying teeth, yeah, that sounds cool, right? You just shoot him at somebody and they just burrow into his skin and he dies. Let's make those. Yeah, it's fucking horrifying. And so we're just like, okay, defensive positions, let's fucking do something. Dreyfus's player says, hey, is there anything that we might know about these tooth monsters? And Tom pipes up and he says, well, since you're in a dangerous situation, you're gonna have to roll for it. And so Dreyfus, he starts to roll, and then Tom says, "Would you like to make a gambit?" So Dreyfus refuses the gambit. He says, "I'm not going to bet anything. I just want to roll." The dice are rolled. He gets a 4. He doesn't know anything about these things, just that they're probably going to kill us all. Helga, she just goes over to Dreyfus. "Do you have a flask of oil?" There's silence. Dreyfus says, "I have a lantern in oil." "But do you have a flask of oil?" "No." "We need fire to burn them." And then the swarm just attacks and just dives down on Helga. And I use my reaction die to push her out of the way and I just tackle her as the swarm just dives down. Dreyfus, he pulls out a shield and takes the brunt of the assault. And then Tom explains to us how initiative works. So the way initiative works in this game is that if you roll an odd on your check, so essentially if you're trying to attack somebody and you roll an odd number, then you pass it to the enemy of your choice. If you roll an even number, you get to pass it to another one of your teammates. Or the swarm rolled odd and missed, so the turn passes to Ellis. Ellis gets up and he grabs his torch out and he's like, "We need to run now." My idea was like, we run further in. Mostly everybody agreed with that. So I make the first run. I dash north, kick in the door that's in front of us. In front of me are two disgusting, I don't even know how to describe them. These things just covered in worms that are dog-like. And they're just sitting there just in the next room. And they start growling at me. And I'm like, this was a bad decision. I probably should have took a right. As Tom is describing these monstrosities in front of me, Helga's player pipes up and says, "Oh, I know what these are." Algernon's player says, "They're tentacle dogs?" And he's just like, "No, these are worse than tentacle dogs." I forget the name of them, honestly. Everything in my mind, I was just like, okay, we need to kill these things in front of us before we can move on, and people need to come this way because if they don't, I'm gonna die. That's all I was thinking at that moment, really. And so there we were, caught between a rock and a hard place. These tentacle dogs in front of us, the swarm behind us. Algernon runs back to the well and separates from the rest of the group, while the swarm just swarms around Carl. Dreyfus, Mames, and Helga, they catch up with Ellis. And so here we are in front of these dogs. Helga, she pulls out her sword and just starts swinging, just cutting them down. Mames gets in the fray and starts swinging with his axe, and they start trading blows. And Dreyfus is just doing his best to just keep the lantern lit and just make sure we don't fall into darkness. We hear Carl curse us for leaving him behind, but the rest of the party is too busy cutting down these rot dogs. Eventually, Dreyfus draws his pickaxe and he slams one into this mass of tentacles and teeth and just brings it down. Algernon runs back into the room with the teeth swarm, grabs Carl. Mames jumps to the front, and he just starts hacking at the other rot swarm with his axe, just putting in work, just cutting him down. And eventually the room's clear. Now at this point, Algernon and Carl have to make a serious decision. There's a swarm of teeth creatures in this room with them. Algernon pushes Carl to the deck, but they're not going to survive for long in this room. They split. Algernon runs out into the well, loses the teeth swarm, and Carl dashes to the door where we fought the rot swarms. And we close the door behind him as he dashes in. And he's just sitting there trying to catch his breath. So then we start seeing what's in this room. And we actually start to notice that there's only one door to this room, and that's the one we came in. So Ellis is like, "Ah, shit." But then Mames is like, "Well, we might as well get something, so I'm gonna start searching the room." So Tom's like, you may search the room. And so we all kind of start tossing the room for swag. And all we find in this room is a pair of brass balls and an old painting and a small bucket of paint, which Helga takes because she's part of the Painters Guild. And then Dreyfus starts to recall his life back in the mines before he started grave digging, and starts wondering if he would have been better off toiling his life away down there in darkness. And as we huddle around the torchlight, we plan our next moves. And that's where the session ends. So please, like and subscribe for more content, and also don't forget to hit that bell icon. Also, don't forget to actually check out their site, Shoeless Pete Games, and also the Discord server that they have if you want to actually talk to some of the creators and get to know the community. And this is Golden Buddha telling you to stay enlightened and stay safe.